Gavin, have you seen Emma's wedding photos? They are absolutely beautiful. My colleague Sandra said those words to me on a Tuesday afternoon in April, standing in the doorway of my office at the Cardiac Center, where I have worked for the past 27 years. She was smiling, her phone already extended toward me, clearly expecting me to share in her enthusiasm. I stared at her. I did not understand what she was saying. The words made no sense, like she was speaking a language I had never learned. Emma's wedding photos? I repeated slowly. Yes, from the ceremony in Malibu. One of my friends was there. She just posted them on Facebook. Your daughter looked stunning. That dress must have cost a fortune. Sandra was still smiling, still holding out her phone, still waiting for me to react the way any proud father would react to photos of his daughter's wedding. She did not know. She could not have known. How could she know that I had no idea my daughter had gotten married? I took the phone from her hand. I looked at the screen, and my entire world collapsed. There was Emma, my little girl who I had held in my arms the day she was born, who I had taught to ride a bicycle, who I had walked to her first day of kindergarten with her tiny hand gripping mine so tightly. She was wearing a white dress, a beautiful flowing gown that caught the California sunlight like it was made of clouds. She was standing on a beach, waves crashing behind her, flowers in her hair, the biggest smile I had ever seen on her face. And next to her was Jake, her boyfriend of 3 years, the man I had tried so hard to accept, the man I had invited into my home and welcomed to my table despite the voice in my head that kept telling me something was wrong. He was wearing a light gray suit, his arm around my daughter's waist, looking at her with an expression of triumph that I now understood perfectly. He had won. He had taken my daughter from me completely. I scrolled through the photos with trembling hands. There was Emma's mother, my ex-wife Patricia, dabbing tears from her eyes. There was Patricia's husband Mark, the man she had left me for 15 years ago, standing proudly as if he had any right to be there. There were Emma's friends from college, from medical school, from the hospital where she now worked as a resident. There were Jake's parents, his brothers, his entire extended family gathered to celebrate this union. 200 people, maybe more. Everyone who mattered in my daughter's life had been there to watch her get married. Everyone except me. I kept scrolling, searching desperately for my own face somewhere in the crowd, thinking maybe I had been there and somehow forgotten. Maybe this was some kind of elaborate joke. Maybe Sandra was showing me photos from someone else's wedding. But no, every photo confirmed the same devastating truth. The father of the bride was nowhere to be seen. There were photos of Patricia walking Emma down the aisle, my ex-wife, in the role that should have been mine, her arm linked through our daughter's, tears streaming down her face. There were photos of the ceremony, of the exchange of rings, of the first kiss. There were photos of the reception, the first dance, the cake cutting, the toasts. Everyone was laughing, celebrating, having the time of their lives. And I was in San Francisco, going about my ordinary Tuesday, completely unaware that 700 miles away, my only child was getting married without me. Gavin! Sandra's voice seemed to come from very far away. Gavin, are you all right? You look pale. I handed her back the phone. I stood up from my desk. I walked past her without saying a word, down the hallway, into the bathroom, where I locked the door and gripped the sink with both hands and tried to remember how to breathe. My daughter had gotten married 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. And no one had told me. I looked at myself in the mirror. 61 years old. Gray hair that had once been black. Lines around my eyes from decades of squinting at monitors and charts. The face of a man who had dedicated his life to saving others, who had sacrificed everything for his career and his family, who had believed that hard work and love were enough to guarantee a place in his daughter's life. That man looked back at me with empty eyes. That man had just learned that everything he believed was a lie. My name is Gavin Porter. I am 61 years old. I am a cardiologist, a specialist in diseases of the heart, a man who has spent his entire career trying to understand how that vital organ works and what makes it fail. I have performed thousands of procedures. I have saved hundreds of lives. I have held the hearts of strangers in my hands and felt the awesome responsibility of keeping them beating. But I could not keep my own daughter's heart connected to mine. I could not save the relationship that mattered more to me than any other. I could not even recognize that I was losing her until it was already too late. I became a doctor because of my father. He was a general practitioner in a small town in Ohio, the kind of doctor who made house calls and knew every patient by name, who delivered babies and set broken bones and held hands with the dying. He was beloved in our community, respected not for his wealth or his status, but for his compassion, his dedication, his willingness to put his patients' needs above his own. I watched him work when I was a boy. I would sit in his office after school, doing my homework at the little desk he set up for me in the corner, listening to him talk with patients about their ailments and their fears. He had a way of making people feel heard, feel valued, feel like they were the most important person in the world. Being a doctor is not about the science, he told me once. The science you can learn from books. Being a doctor is about the human connection. It is about looking someone in the eyes and making them believe that you will do everything in your power to help them. That belief, that trust, is more powerful than any medicine. I carried those words with me through medical school, through residency, through the long years of building my career. I chose cardiology because the heart seemed like the most important organ, the one that literally kept people alive, the one whose failure meant the end of everything. I want to be the doctor who saved hearts, who gave people more time with their families, who stood between life and death and chose life. I was good at my job. I was more than good. I became one of the most respected cardiologists in the Bay Area, known for my skill in the operating room and my compassion in the consultation room. I published papers, trained residents, built a practice that patients traveled hundreds of miles to access. I won awards and accolades and all the external markers of success. But none of that mattered now. None of it could protect me from the pain of discovering that my own daughter had excluded me from her wedding. All my professional accomplishments, all my saved lives, all my years of dedication meant nothing compared to the simple fact that Emma did not want me there when she said her vows. To understand how I ended up sobbing in a hospital bathroom while my colleagues went about their rounds outside, you need to understand my family. You need to know who we were before everything fell apart, before Jake came into our lives, before my daughter became a stranger wearing the face of someone I used to love. Emma was born on a perfect September morning in 1996. I was 33 years old, already established in my cardiology practice, already on the path to becoming one of the most respected specialists in the state. Patricia and I had been married for 5 years, trying for a baby for 3 of them, enduring the disappointments and heartbreaks that come with fertility struggles. I remember the day Patricia told me she was pregnant. I had just come home from a long shift at the hospital, exhausted and discouraged after losing a patient on the operating table. She met me at the door with tears in her eyes, and my first thought was that something terrible had happened, that someone had died, that our world was about to collapse. Instead, she handed me a small white stick with 2 pink lines. "We are going to be parents," she whispered. I picked her up and spun her around the living room, both of us laughing and crying at the same time. All the exhaustion of the day disappeared. All the grief over the lost patient faded into the background. We were going to have a baby. We were going to be a family. The pregnancy was difficult. Patricia had morning sickness that lasted well into the 2nd trimester. She was on bed rest for the final 2 months, forbidden from even walking to the kitchen without assistance. I hired a nurse to stay with her during the day, and I raced home every evening to take over, to make her dinner, to rub her feet, to tell her stories about the baby we were waiting for. I talked to Emma constantly during those months. I would lie next to Patricia with my hand on her belly, feeling the kicks and movements of our daughter, and I would tell her about the world she was about to enter. I told her about the house we were building for her, the nursery I was painting in soft yellow, because we did not know yet if she was a boy or a girl. I told her about her grandparents, about the places we would take her, about all the adventures waiting for her on the other side. "I will always be there for you," I promised, my lips close to Patricia's swollen belly. "No matter what happens, no matter where life takes us, I will always be your father. I will always love you." When Emma finally arrived, healthy and beautiful, and screaming her lungs out in that delivery room, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. I held her in my arms, this tiny, perfect creature, and I wept with joy I had not known was possible. The nurse had to pry her from my grasp to run the standard tests. "You will have the rest of your life to hold her," she said kindly. I believed her. I believed I would have decades to be Emma's father, to watch her grow, to guide her through all the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead. I believed that the bond we formed in those first moments would be unbreakable. I was wrong. The early years were everything I had hoped they would be. Emma was a happy child, curious and energetic, always asking questions, always wanted to know how things worked. She followed me around the house like a shadow, wanting to help with everything I did, whether it was fixing a leaky faucet or mowing the lawn or cooking dinner. "Daddy, can I help?" was her constant refrain, and I always found something for her to do, even if it meant the task took twice as long. Patricia sometimes got frustrated with me for indulging her so much. "You are spoiling her," she would say. "She needs to learn independence." But I could not help myself. Every moment with Emma felt precious, a gift I did not want to waste. I knew that childhood was fleeting, that soon enough she would be a teenager who wanted nothing to do with her father, then an adult with her own life, her own priorities, her own family. I wanted to store up as many memories as possible before that inevitable distance arrived. I coached her soccer team when she was 7. I sat through countless dance recitals, always in the front row, always with flowers for after performance. I helped with homework and science projects and the endless drama of elementary school friendships. I was there for skin, knees, and hurt feelings, and the 1,000 small crises that make up a child's life. And Emma adored me. She would run to the door when I came home from work, launching herself into my arms, talking a mile a minute about everything that had happened while I was gone. She made me Father's Day cards with glitter and macaroni glued to construction paper. She told me she wanted to be a doctor like Daddy, because doctors help people, and helping people is the most important thing. Those were the golden years. The years I look back on now with such longing that it feels like physical pain. The divorce from Patricia happened when Emma was 12. It was my fault, mostly. I was too focused on my career, too dedicated to my patients, too absent from the family I claimed to love. Patricia had been patient for years, had tried to tell me that something was wrong, had begged me to be present, to be available, to be the husband she needed. I did not listen. Or rather, I listened and then went back to work, promising to change, promising to do better, never actually following through. She met Mark at a conference for insurance executives. He was everything I was not: present, available, attentive. He made her feel seen in a way that I had forgotten how to do. Their affair lasted 6 months before she told me. By then, she had already made her decision. I do not blame her. Not anymore. At the time, I was furious, hurt, convinced that she betrayed everything we had built together. But years of therapy and self-reflection have taught me that I was the one who abandoned our marriage first. I just did it so gradually, so quietly, that I did not even notice until it was already over. The divorce was hard on Emma. She was old enough to understand what was happening, to take sides, to feel the loyalty conflicts that children of divorce always feel. She cried when I moved out of our family home. She begged us to stay together. She blamed herself the way children always do, convinced that if she had been better, smarter, less trouble, her parents would still love each other. Patricia and I tried to make the transition as smooth as possible. We agreed on joint custody. We agreed to put Emma first. We agreed that whatever had gone wrong between us would not be allowed to damage our daughter. For years, that arrangement worked. Emma split her time between our 2 homes, loved by both parents, secure in the knowledge that even though Mom and Dad were no longer together, they would always be united in their love for her. I coached her soccer team. Patricia helped with her homework. We sat together at her high school graduation, putting aside whatever lingering resentment we felt for the sake of our child. I remember that graduation so clearly. Emma in her cap and gown, beaming with pride, giving a speech as class valedictorian about the importance of following your dreams. She thanked both her parents, looking at us in the audience, acknowledging that our support had made her success possible. Afterward, She hugged me for a long time. "Thank you, Daddy," she said, "for everything. I would not be here without you." I was so proud of her that I could barely speak. My daughter, the valedictorian. My daughter, heading to Stanford in the fall. My daughter, everything I had ever hoped she would be. When Patricia remarried, I accepted it. Mark seemed like a decent enough man, an insurance executive with a calm demeanor and a genuine affection for Emma. I did not like him, not really, but I did not have to like him. I just had to coexist with him, to share the holidays and the milestones, to be a civilized adult for Emma's sake. I never remarried. There were women over the years, relationships that lasted months or sometimes years, but none of them ever felt permanent. None of them ever replaced a family I had lost. I poured my energy into my work and into my daughter, convincing myself that was enough, that I did not need anything else. Emma went to Stanford for her undergraduate degree. I paid for every penny of it, happily, proudly, watching my daughter thrive at one of the best universities in the country. She chose to study biology, then decided to apply to medical school, following in her old man's footsteps. I could not have been more proud. I still have the letter she wrote me when she got into Stanford's medical school. She could have gone anywhere, could have chosen Johns Hopkins or Harvard or any of the prestigious programs that recruited her. But she chose Stanford because it meant she could stay close to me, because she wanted to have dinner with her dad every Sunday, because our relationship still mattered to her. "I know I could go anywhere," she wrote, "but nowhere else as you, and you are my favorite person in the world." I framed that letter. I hung it in my office, where I could see it every day. When things got hard, when I lost patience or made mistakes or doubted my purpose, I would look at those words and remember why I did what I did. For Emma, always for Emma. She got into a residency program in Los Angeles. Pediatric surgery, one of the most competitive specialties in medicine. She called me crying with joy when she got the news, and I cried too, alone in my office, overwhelmed with pride for the woman my little girl had become. It meant she would be moving away. 700 miles, a short flight, but a long drive. I knew our Sunday dinners would become monthly visits, then quarterly visits, then whenever we could manage. I knew I was losing her in the gradual way that all parents lose their children when they grow up and build their own lives. But I accepted it. I celebrated it. It was what I had raised her for, after all, to be independent, to be successful, to go out into the world and make her mark. My job was done. I had given her everything she needed to thrive. Now it was time to step back and watch her soar. It was during her first year of residency that she met Jake Morrison, 29 years old, a real estate developer, or so he claimed, good-looking in that polished, carefully constructed way that immediately made me suspicious. He smiled too easily, agreed too readily, said all the right things with a smoothness that felt rehearsed. I remember the first time I met him. Emma had been talking about this new boyfriend for weeks, clearly smitten, eager for me to meet him. She flew us both up to San Francisco for a weekend, wanting us to have time to get to know each other. Jake walked into my house with a bottle of expensive wine and a firm handshake. He complimented the decor. He asked intelligent questions about my work. He made Emma laugh with stories about his own misadventures in the real estate business. He was, on the surface, exactly the kind of man a father would want for his daughter. But I have spent my career reading people. I have learned to see past the symptoms to the underlying disease, to hear what patients are not saying as clearly as what they are. And something about Jake did not ring true. It was the way he looked at Emma when he thought no one was watching, not with love, not with tenderness, but with something closer to possession. She was a prize he had won, a trophy he was showing off. When she spoke, he would nod along, but his eyes would drift to me, checking my reaction, making sure performance was landing. He asked me questions about my practice, my career, my investments. Questions that felt less like genuine curiosity and more like reconnaissance. He wanted to know how much I was worth. He wanted to calculate Emma's inheritance. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that no man would ever be good enough for my daughter in my eyes, that I needed to let go and trust her judgment. She was a grown woman, a doctor, intelligent and capable. She could make her own decisions. But the unease never went away. Every time I saw them together, every time I talked to Emma about their relationship, the same alarm bells rang in the back of my mind. What do you think of Jake? Emma asked me at the end of that first weekend, her eyes bright with hope, clearly wanting my approval. I hesitated. I should have told her the truth. I should have said that something felt off, that I wanted her to be careful, that I loved her too much to pretend everything was fine. But I looked at her face, so happy, so hopeful, and I could not do it. He seems like a nice young man, I said. I am happy for you. She beamed. She hugged me. She told me she knew I would love him, that she could not wait for us to become a family. I have thought about that moment so many times since then. What if I had spoken up? What if I had voiced my concerns gently but honestly? Would it have made a difference? Or would Emma have defended Jake, accused me of being overprotective, started building the walls that would eventually shut me out? I will never know, and the uncertainty haunts me. The changes started slowly, so slowly that I did not notice them at first. Emma stopped calling as often. Where we used to talk 3 or 4 times a week, now it was once a week, then once every 2 weeks. When I called her, she was always busy, always with Jake, always promising to call back later, and then not calling. She stopped visiting. I lived in San Francisco, a short flight from Los Angeles, and she used to come up every month or 2 for a weekend with Dad. After Jake, the visits became quarterly, then semi-annually, then not at all. She stopped sharing. Emma had always told me everything, her triumphs and struggles, her hopes and fears, the daily details of her life that made me feel connected to her even when we were apart. Now our conversations were superficial, polite exchanges about weather and work that could have been between acquaintances rather than father and daughter. I tried to talk to her about it. I tried to ask what was wrong, why she seemed so distant, whether I had done something to upset her. She always had an excuse. She was tired from the residency. She was busy with Jake. She was adjusting to life in L.A. Nothing was wrong. Everything was fine. Everything was not fine. I know that now. Jake was systematically cutting me out of my daughter's life, and I was too foolish or too trusting to see it happening. I learned later, much later, what he had been telling her, that I was controlling and judgmental, that I had never approved of their relationship, that I was jealous of her happiness because my own marriage had failed, that I would try to break them up if given a chance, that she needed to create distance to protect what they had. None of it was true, or at least, none of it was true in the way he presented it. Yes, I had concerns about Jake, but I had never tried to interfere. I had never said anything to Emma that could be construed as opposition to their relationship. I had been welcoming and supportive, biting my tongue, hoping that time would either prove my concerns wrong or give Emma the clarity to see what I saw. Instead, time gave Jake the opportunity to poison my daughter against me. 3 years of whispered suggestions and subtle manipulations. 3 years of building walls between Emma and everyone who might challenge his influence. By the time I realized what was happening, the walls were too high to climb. I tried reaching out more aggressively. I sent longer emails, planned surprise visits, suggested trips we could take together like old times. But every attempt was met with polite deflection. Emma was too busy. Emma had other plans. Emma would love to see me, but maybe next month, maybe after the holidays, maybe when things settled down. The maybes became nevers, and I did not know what to do. The engagement announcement came through a text message, not a phone call, not a visit. A text message that said, "Dad, Jake proposed." I said yes. We'll call soon to discuss. She never called. When I called her, she did not answer. When I texted asking about wedding plans, she replied with vague non-answers that made it clear I was not going to be involved in the planning. I tried to stay positive. I told myself that modern couples often plan their own weddings without much parental involvement. I told myself that Emma was busy with her residency, that she would include me when things settled down. I offered to pay for the wedding, to help in any way I could, to fly to Los Angeles whenever she needed me. "That is so generous, Dad," she replied to my offer. "But Jake, and I want to keep things small and simple." We are thinking of just going to courthouse. Small and simple. The courthouse. I accepted that. I was disappointed, but I accepted it. At least I would be there for the courthouse wedding. I thought, at least I would see my daughter get married. Months passed. Every time I asked about the wedding date, Emma was vague. They had not decided yet. They were waiting for a break in her residency schedule. They wanted to make sure the timing was right. I stopped asking, not wanting to pressure her, trusting that she would tell me when she was ready. 3 weeks ago, while I was performing a routine cardiac catheterization on a 70-year-old patient, my daughter got married on a beach in Malibu. 200 guests, a custom designer gown, a reception at a 5-star resort. Anything but small and simple. And I was not there, because no one told me it was happening. The day after Sandra showed me those photos, I called Emma. She did not answer. I called again, and again, and again. Finally, on the 4th attempt, she picked up. Dad. Her voice was flat, emotionless, like she was talking to a telemarketer rather than her father. I was going to call you. You were going to call me? Emma, I just saw your wedding photos on Facebook. You got married 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. And I had to find out from a colleague. Silence on the line. Then I knew you would be upset. Upset? I am devastated. I am your father. I have been there for every important moment of your life. And you got married without even telling me? Without inviting me? Without giving me the chance to watch my only child walk down the aisle. Dad, it is complicated. Then uncomplicate for me. Tell me why. Tell me what I did that was so terrible that I did not deserve to be at your wedding. More silence. When she finally spoke, her voice was smaller, younger, almost like the little girl she used to be. We thought, that your presence would make things difficult. You have never really accepted him. Dad, you have always looked at him like he was not good enough. We did not want that energy at our wedding. I have never said a word against Jake. Not one word. I have welcomed him into my home. I have been nothing but supportive. It is not what you say, Dad. It is how you look at him. It is a judgment in your voice. Jake can feel it. I can feel it. We just wanted one day, one perfect day, without having to worry about whether you approved. I sat down heavily, the phone pressed against my ear, my heart pounding in my chest. The irony was not lost on me. A cardiologist, having what felt like a heart attack, caused by his own daughter's words. So you decided to exclude me entirely, to not even give me the chance to prove you wrong. You just assumed I would ruin everything and made a decision without consulting me. Mom agreed. Mark agreed. Everyone agreed it was for the best. Everyone except me, the one person who should have had a say, your father. Dad. She trailed off. I could hear Jake's voice in the background, low and insistent, saying something I could not make out. When Emma spoke again, her voice had changed. Harder, more distant. I have to go. Jake and I have dinner reservations. Maybe we can talk about this later, when you have calmed down. Emma, wait. But she was gone. The call ended, and I sat there in my living room, staring at the phone in my hand, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I went through the motions at work, seeing patients, performing procedures, attending meetings, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept replaying every moment with Emma, every conversation, every interaction, searching for the point where I had failed her, where I had done something to deserve this exile. I could not find it. I could find moments where I had been imperfect. Certainly, times when I was too busy with work to give her the attention she deserved. Times when I offered advice she had not asked for, or expressed opinions she did not share. But nothing that warranted being excluded from her wedding. Nothing that justified being erased from the most important day of her life. Patricia reached out about 2 weeks after I learned the truth. She called me, something she almost never did anymore, her voice carefully neutral. Gavin, I heard that you found out about the wedding. I wanted to explain. Explain what? How you walked our daughter down the aisle, without bothering to tell me it was happening. Emma asked me not to tell you. She was very clear about what she wanted. I tried to convince her otherwise. I really did, but she was adamant. She said you would try to stop the wedding if you knew. Stop the wedding? Why would I stop the wedding? I offer to pay for it, for God's sake. I do not know, Gavin. I do not understand what happened between you and Emma, but she genuinely believes that you do not approve of Jake, and she was terrified that you would make a scene. She just wanted one day without drama. So instead, she created more drama than I ever could have. She destroyed our relationship. She made me feel like I meant nothing to her. Patricia was quiet for a moment. I tried to tell her that. I said she would regret this, that she was hurting you for no good reason. But Jake was very persuasive. He had her convinced that this was the only way. Jake! I felt the anger rising in my chest. This is Jake's doing. He has been turning her against me for years. And you let it happen. You walked her down the aisle knowing that I was sitting at home, oblivious, thinking I would be at my daughter's courthouse wedding whenever she got around to scheduling it. I am sorry, Gavin. I really am, but it was not my decision to make. Emma is an adult. She has the right to choose who is at her wedding. She has the right. But that does not make it right. There is a difference. Patricia did not have an answer for that. We talked for a few more minutes, circling around the same painful points. And then she said she had to go. And I was alone again with my grief and my anger. I started seeing a therapist. Not because I thought I was crazy, but because I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me process what had happened without judgment. Her name was Dr. Reeves, a woman about my age with a calm demeanor and a way of asking questions that made me think rather than just react. Tell me about your relationship with Emma before Jake, she said in one of our early sessions. It was wonderful. She was my best friend, my favorite person in the world. We talked about everything. We laughed together, cried together, shared our lives in a way that I thought would never change. And when did you first notice things changing? About 6 months after she started dating Jake. The calls became less frequent. The visits stopped. She seemed different, more guarded, less open. Did you address this with her directly? I tried. She always had an excuse. She was busy. She was tired. She was adjusting to a new relationship. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. I did not want to admit that something was wrong. And what you think was wrong? I was quiet for a long moment. Jake was isolating her. I have read about this, about how abusers separate their victims from family and friends. I am not saying Jake is abusive, not physically, but there is something controlling about him, something that makes me deeply uncomfortable. Have you ever seen evidence of abuse? No, nothing concrete. Just a feeling, a sense that Emma is not herself when she is around him, that she is playing a role, being the person he wants her to be instead of the person she actually is. And do you think Emma would agree with that assessment? No. She would say I am being paranoid, that I am looking for reasons to dislike Jake because I cannot accept that she has grown up and does not need me anymore. Dr. Reeves nodded slowly. Is there any truth to that? The question hit me harder than I expected. Was there truth to it? Was I jealous of Jake, not because he was bad for Emma, but simply because he had replaced me? Was my dislike of him rooted in genuine concern, or in the petty resentment of a father who could not let go? I do not know, I admitted. Maybe, probably. But that does not mean my concerns are invalid. It does not mean Jake is good for her just because I am struggling with the transition. No, it does not. Both things can be true simultaneously. You could have complicated feelings about your daughter's independence while also having legitimate concerns about her partner. So what do I do? What do you want to do? I thought about the question for a long time. What did I want? I wanted my daughter back. I wanted to rewind to before Jake, to the relationship we used to have, to the easy intimacy that had once defined our bond. But I could not have that. Time only moves in one direction. I want to be in her life. I finally said, whatever that looks like, even if it means accepting Jake, accepting their marriage, accepting that things will never be the way they were. I would rather have a diminished relationship with Emma than no relationship at all. Then you need to tell her that. You need to reach out, not with anger or accusations, but with love and a genuine desire to reconcile. What if she does not want to reconcile? What if Jake has convinced her that I am the enemy? Then you wait. You make it clear that the door is always open, that your love is unconditional, that you will be there whenever she is ready. And you hope that eventually she will walk through that door. The sessions with Dr. Reeves became the anchor of my week. Every Thursday at 4 o'clock, I would sit in her office and try to make sense of the wreckage of my relationship with Emma. We talked about everything. The divorce, my guilt over not being present enough during Emma's childhood, the ways I had tried to compensate by being financially generous, by being available whenever she needed me, by making her the center of my emotional world. That is a lot of pressure put on a child. Dr. Reeves observed one afternoon, even an adult child, when you make someone the center of your world, you're asking them to carry a weight that may be too heavy. I did not mean to pressure her. I just loved her. I know, but love can be suffocating when it comes with expectations. When Emma chose Jake, she may have felt like she was betraying you, not because you said anything, but because she knew how much you needed her, and that knowledge may have pushed her to create distance. I thought about that for a long time. Had I been too needy? Had my love for Emma become a burden rather than a gift? I had always thought I was being a good father, being present, being supportive. But maybe I had crossed a line somewhere, had gone from loving my daughter to depending on her for my own emotional survival. After the divorce, I said slowly, Emma was all I had. My marriage had failed. My parents were gone. I had colleagues, but not really friends. She was the only person who truly mattered to me. And she knew that. Yes, she knew. How do you think that made her feel? I closed my eyes, remembering a conversation we had when Emma was in college. She had called me late one night, worried about an exam, and I had talked her through it for over an hour. At the end of the call, she had said something that I had not fully understood at the time. Dad, you know I love you, right? But sometimes I feel like I am the only thing holding you together. And that scares me. What happens when I am not around anymore? What happens when I have my own family, my own life? I had brushed it off. I had told her not to worry, that I was fine, that I would always be fine as long as she was happy. But she was right to be scared. She was right to feel the weight of my dependence. And maybe, just maybe, Jake had offered her an escape from that weight. Maybe choosing him was not just about loving him, but about freeing herself from me. I never wanted to be a burden, I told Dr. Reeves. I never wanted her to feel responsible for my happiness. Intent does not always match impact. You may not have wanted those things, but that does not mean they did not happen. It was a hard truth to accept. I had spent months blaming Jake, casting him as the villain who had stolen my daughter. But maybe the story was more complicated than that. Maybe I had played a role in pushing her away. Maybe the walls between us had been built from both sides. That did not excuse what Emma had done. It did not justify excluding me from her wedding, without even a conversation. But it helped me understand that there were no simple villains here, no easy answers, no way to fix things by pointing fingers. I wrote Emma a letter, a real letter, on paper, in my own handwriting. I spent 3 days composing it, trying to find the right words, trying to express my pain without making it about blame, trying to show her that I was willing to change, to adapt, to be whatever kind of father she needed me to be. I told her that I was sorry, not for anything specific, because I genuinely did not know what I had done wrong, but for the ways I had made her feel unwelcome, unloved, unaccepted. I told her that I loved Jake because she loved him, and that I was ready to embrace him as a son-in-law, as a member of our family. I told her about the day she was born, about the promise I had made to always be there for her. I told her that I had kept that promise for 28 years, and that I wanted to keep it for 28 more, for as long as I live, for as long as she would let me. I told her about the letter she wrote me when she chose Stanford, the one I had framed and hung in my office. I told her that those words had sustained me through the hardest moments of my career, that knowing I was her favorite person in the world had given my life meaning beyond anything I could have achieved on my own. I told her that missing her wedding was the most painful experience of my life, more painful than the divorce from her mother, more painful than the deaths of my own parents, more painful than anything I had ever endured. But I did not want that pain to define our future. I did not want one terrible day to erase a lifetime of love. I told her that the door was always open, that I would be waiting whenever she was ready to walk through it, that nothing she could do, nothing Jake could do, would ever change how much I loved her. And then I mailed the letter and waited. The response came 3 months later. Not from Emma, but from Jake. An email, cold and formal, like something drafted by a lawyer. Dear Dr. Porter, Emma has asked me to respond to your letter on her behalf. While she appreciates your sentiments, she is not ready to resume contact at this time. The stress of your expectations has been detrimental to her mental health, and she needs space to focus on her marriage and her career. Please respect her boundaries. She will reach out when and if she is ready. Until then, we ask that you refrain from further communication. Sincerely, Jake Morrison. I read the email 3 times. Each time, the anger grew hotter. Jake was speaking for my daughter. Jake was setting the terms of our relationship. Jake was using words like boundaries and mental health to make me the villain, the overbearing father who could not take a hint. But beneath the anger was fear. Fear that Jake was right. Fear that my attempts to reach Emma were only pushing her further away. Fear that I had already lost her completely. And every letter, every phone call, every expression of love was just making things worse. I showed the email to Dr. Reeves. She read it carefully, her expression unreadable. How does this make you feel? Furious. Helpless. Like Jake is standing between me and my daughter, and there is nothing I can do about it. Do you think that is an accurate characterization of the situation? I do not know. Maybe Emma really did ask him to write this. Maybe she really does need space. Or maybe Jake is controlling what she sees and hears, making sure she never reads my letters, never hears my voice, never has a chance to decide for herself. Which do you think is more likely? I think Jake is manipulating her. I think he has been manipulating her from the beginning, but I have no proof. And without proof, I just look like a bitter old man who cannot accept that his daughter chose someone else. Dr. Reeves nodded slowly. Here is the difficult truth, Gavin. You may never know for certain what is happening in Emma's marriage. You may never have the proof you need to confirm your suspicions. And even if you did, confronting her with it might only push her further into Jake's arms. So what do? Just give up? Accept that my daughter is gone. No, you do exactly what you said you would do in your letter. You leave the door open. You wait, and you trust that the relationship you built with Emma over 28 years is strong enough to survive this. That somewhere inside her, she still remembers who you are and what you mean to her. And if she does not, if Jake succeeds in erasing me completely, then you grieve, you accept the loss, and you find a way to move forward with your life, knowing that you did everything you could. It has been 6 months since the wedding. 6 months since I found out my daughter got married without me. 6 months of silence, of waiting, of hoping for a phone call that never comes. I still go to work every day. I still save lives, still perform procedures, still do the job I have dedicated my career to. My patients do not know about my personal pain. They see a competent physician, a skilled cardiologist, a man who knows how to fix broken hearts. If only I could fix my own. There are moments when the grief ambushes me. I will be in the middle of a procedure, completely focused on the patient in front of me, and suddenly a thought will flash through my mind. Emma is married, and I was not there. The thought hits me like a physical blow, and I have to pause, take a breath, force myself to concentrate on the work at hand. It happens at home, too. I will be cooking dinner, the same recipes I used to make for Emma when she was little, and I will set 2 places at the table out of habit. Then I will remember that she is not coming, that she has not come in years, that she may never come again. I put away the extra plate and eat alone in a house that feels emptier every day. The hardest moments are the holidays. Emma's birthday came and went last month. I sent her a card, just a simple card with no demands, no guilt, just a father telling his daughter that he loves her and hopes she is well. I do not know if she received it. I do not know if Jake intercepted it, like he intercepted my letter. I do not know anything anymore. I bought her a gift anyway. a necklace with her birthstone, the same style she used to wear as a teenager. I could not bring myself to mail it, knowing it might end up in the trash or worse, on some resale site. So it sits in my desk drawer, waiting for a day that may never come. I have stopped sending letters. I have stopped calling. I have followed the boundaries that Jake set, not because I think they are right, but because I do not want to give him more ammunition to use against me. Every attempt at contact is evidence of my obsession, my inability to let go. By staying silent, I am showing Emma that I respect her choices, even when those choices break my heart. But I have not given up. Every Sunday, I light a candle for her. Not a religious ritual, not exactly, but a way of sending love into the universe, hoping somehow it will reach her. I tell the candle about my week, about the patients I have helped, about the small moments of joy that still manage to break through the grief. I tell the candle that I love her, that I miss her, that I am waiting. I do not know if it helps. I do not know if anything helps. But it gives me something to do with the love that is nowhere else to go. My colleagues have noticed a change in me. They do not say anything directly, but I can see it in their eyes, the concern, the careful way they approach me. Sandra apologized 100 times for showing me those photos, as if the photos were the problem, as if not knowing would have been better than knowing. Maybe it would have been. Ignorance is supposed to be bliss. But I am glad I know. I am glad the pretense is over. At least now I understand where I stand. At least now I can stop wondering why my daughter never calls, why she always has an excuse, why our relationship feels like it is dying a slow death. It is not dying. It is dead, or at least it is in a coma, and I do not know if it will ever wake up. Dr. Reeves suggested I find other sources of meaning in my life. Hobbies, friendships, volunteer work, things that do not depend on Emma, that cannot be taken away by Jake, that belong only to me. I have tried. I joined a hiking group that meets on Saturday mornings. I started volunteering at a free clinic downtown, treating patients who cannot afford to see a specialist. I reconnected with old friends from medical school, people I had neglected during the years when Emma was my only priority. It helps. Not enough, but it helps. The hiking gives me time in nature, away from the hospital and the empty house. The clinic reminds me why I became a doctor in the first place, to help people who need it, not to accumulate wealth and status. The old friends remind me that I existed before Emma, that I had an identity before I became a father, that I can have a life even if my daughter is not in it. But nothing fills the hole she left. Nothing replaces a relationship I have lost. I go through the motions of building a new life, and sometimes I even enjoy it. But underneath there's always the ache, the absence, the constant awareness that something fundamental is missing. Last month, I saw Emma's picture on the hospital's internal newsletter. She had published a paper on pediatric surgical techniques, a significant achievement for someone still in residency. The photo showed her smiling, confident, successful. She looked happy. I stared at that photo for a long time. My daughter, the brilliant surgeon. My daughter, making her mark on the world. My daughter, living the life I always dreamed she would live. And I was not part of it. I cut out the picture and put in my wallet next to the photo of her as a baby, the one I have carried for 28 years. 2 images of the same person. The child I raised and the woman she became. The beginning and the end of the story I thought we were writing together. Sometimes I take out those photos and look at them side by side. The baby with the scrunched up face and the tiny fists. The woman in the professional headshot, confident and accomplished. I try to trace the journey between them, to find a moment where everything changed, to identify the fork in the road where we went our separate ways. I cannot find it. There was no single moment. There was only a gradual drift, a slow erosion, 1,000 small choices that added up to a chasm neither of us knew how to cross. Maybe there will be more chapters. Maybe Emma will wake up one day and realize what she has lost. Maybe she will pick up the phone and call, and I will answer, and we will start the slow work of rebuilding what was broken. Maybe Jake will show his true colors, and she will see what I saw from the beginning, and she will need her father to help her escape. Or maybe not. Maybe this is how our story ends. A father and a daughter, Separated by a man who saw an opportunity and took it. A relationship that survived divorce and distance and all the usual challenges. Finally destroyed by something as simple and as devastating as a wedding invitation that never arrived. I do not know what the future holds. I only know that I will be here, waiting for as long as it takes. Because that is what fathers do. That is what love does. It waits. And hope, however faint, is better than surrender. Thanks for listening. It took me a lifetime to learn that respect is not given. It is earned. And sometimes you have to fight for it. I have left 2 more stories on your screen from men who learned the same lesson. Click the one that speaks to you. And if you believe family is about loyalty, not just blood, tap the bell. Remember, it is never too late to stand up for yourself.